Hello, welcome, please come in. We resume our Rangers-only journey today in our final game of the series, Final Fantasy XII, where the Ranger class is referred to as Archer. And we start as always at our garamythe waterways save point to skip the intro and assign everyone their license grid. Archers in this game are pretty interesting, having the bow and light armor licenses you might expect, but also having the most item lores of any class, which should be very helpful. They also have a few other boons that should be very helpful for getting through this challenge. But anyway, Amalia has been rescued and it's time for the first kind of boss, a group of Flan. And Fran can deal big damage with her starting fire spell, and then it's just a slow process of dealing melee damage to defeat the remaining Flans. To be fair, we don't really have equipment typical of our Rangers at this point, but this will have to do for now. Continue through the garamythe waterways and it's time for the next boss, the Fire Main. This fight is pretty easy as normal, but I do need to devote more effort to healing with potions. Fran does have Cure, but she doesn't have nearly as much MP as she'd need to finish this fight. At least this is an early boss that's pretty easy. This gets the party captured in Albina Fortress, so it's time to engage in some fisticuffs and then get our gear back. Then run through this part of the fortress very quickly. That means reaching the Barheim passage and the first proper shop after assigning license grids, so it's time to outfit the party. Bows and arrows all around. Bows scale off strength and speed, though they prioritize strength, and much like crossbows have a higher mischance in bad weather. They also can't combo, which is great. I'm sure my damage is going to be so good in this run. I'm very excited to deal big damage, but now that the whole party has been outfitted, it's into the Barheim passage, and as I kind of expected, my damage is kinda meh. Certainly not as bad as some jobs in this game, but wow, bows are not the best weapon. Oh well, nothing I can do about that. I just need to work my way through the Barheim passage, pick up some treasures. At least Bosch gets a real weapon halfway through the dungeon and can start dealing actual damage to help my party out. But anyway, at the end of the dungeon, we must deal with the next boss in the list, the Mimic Queen. Immediate priority is to take out the little Mimic so they don't drain the power level too low. Then I can turn my attention to the Mimic Queen. This fight is pretty easy as this boss doesn't really have any dangerous attacks, and that is Mimic Queen down. Okay, time for the long run back to Rabanastre. And in Rabanastre, I can take a sword to the Resistance headquarters and get Bosch back into the party permanently. And as is pretty normal, because Bosch has the highest strength and bow scale primarily off strength, Bosch will be a permanent part of the active party. It's then over to the Sandseed to pick up Fran and Balthier, and then to the Aerodrome to fly to Bujerba. And first up is to go shopping. For new bows, for everyone. Nice. And new armor. Hooray. Love having just new equipment across the board. Makes everything so much easier. Oh, and while I'm spending LP, I should move to the right on everyone's grid to get some of the item lures present over here. Archers do eventually get all 3 potion lures, all 3 phoenix lures, and all 3 remedy lures, which is just incredible from a survivability standpoint. Oh, and also Lamont joined the party as a guest, and he has Kira, which is really nice for maintaining my party without having to burn through consumables. I will still burn through a lot of consumables in this playthrough, but at least for now, I don't need to, and that's very nice. Anyway, Lusu mines are very boring, there are a bunch of skeletons, and at the end I can just run away instead of dealing with Bagamnon and co., which gets me right back to... Actually, I should confirm damage numbers. Yep, Bosch and Von deal more damage than Balthier. That is as expected. Anyway, in Bujerba, it's time for a shouting puzzle. That done, I can sell things, buy a bundle in the bazaar that gets slightly better arrows for Bosch, and then buy new armor for everyone. Hooray! Then it's time for a meeting with the Marquis, and on board the Leviathan to start wrecking the place. Lamont is out of the party, and Vossler is in, which is a bit of a shame, because that means no more healing magic, which can pose a bit of a problem. I don't exactly have infinite potions, and even what potions I do have aren't actually curing that much HP, but we'll make it work. Next up is everyone's favorite boss, Room Full of Dudes, which goes fine. I have potions, potion lures, and my damage is okay. Vossler also may lack healing, but he does hit pretty hard. And now that Ash has joined the party, it's time to drop Balthier. Ash won't deal as much damage, but I want Ash's higher magic power because archers actually get some usable white magic. I don't have the licenses yet to use it, and I can't actually buy it in the shop yet, but soon. And I'm hoping Ash's higher magic will make her magic more usable for longer. I guess we'll see. But anyway, now it's time to run back through the Leviathan with all the alarm bells going off. Ash being a permanent part of the active party also means I do have some non-consumable healing. It's not the best healing, but it's something at least. Oh, that's not good. Okay, getting a bit swarmed here, and I actually really do not have as much healing as I'd prefer. This room is always such a nightmare. Let's just run back room, regroup. I really need a bit of space. I guess I do have high potions, but I don't have a ton of them. Okay, regrouping done, let's turn off this alarm for a second and then book it because I need to get out of here as quickly as possible. And there we go, I've reached the end, everyone is mostly fine, and we're set for the next boss, Judge Geese. First move is to throw out arrow motes to destroy the ads. Once Geese's HP gets a bit low, I can turn off my Cure Gambit and throw out a Reflect Gamote. Geese switches to using arrow at low HP, and Reflect means he is now dealing more damage to himself than I am. And that ends the fight pretty quickly. Leviathan has been completed and the full party assembled, so another quick chat with the Marquis and we head over to the Wester Sand. And here I can buy the game changer for this run, Cura, which archers can cast by passing through a basic quickening space, which means healing should be covered, for a while at least. I also bought new bows. And that means it's time for everyone's favorite zones, the Sand Seas, hooray! At least this area is a good place to get the experience I desperately need. And Vossler rejoins the party. Now that Ash can cast Cura, his physical attack is probably more useful than more healing anyway. Looking over the treasure list for the area, and I will grab the golden amulet here, and nope, nothing else worth going out of my way for, as is usually the case. Honestly, unless a chest has a guaranteed item, it's usually just not worth farming in this game, which is kind of a bummer, but it's true. And through the Sand Seas, we reach Wraithwall's tomb, and it's Garuda time. I have healing, I have ranged attacks, this is not a particularly difficult fight. I mean, I am under-leveled, so I do have a few characters drop, but that's very easy to recover from. This boss has a lot of damage output, but it's pretty frail, and when my entire party can effectively damage it, there's just nothing to really worry about. Ooh, the shop has new bows? I love new bows. New bows, best bows. There's also probably better armor, but in addition to being underleveled, I'm also poor. Anyway, into the tomb, and it's time to face down a demon wall. The torches on the side of the arena will stop the demon temporarily, or speed it up, dealer's choice, but my damage with the new bows is good enough. This fight is really just about meeting a damage per second threshold, and I more than meet it. So it's into the tomb proper, which is really just running through, shooting enemies, activating these things. There are treasures to be picked up, but there's really nothing too exciting. I think I will switch Vaughn to using high potions for healing though. Cura is my main healing workhorse, but it is pretty MP intensive, and potions just don't heal enough to be worth using. Hopefully we can make that MP cost issue less of an issue soon. And with extra money from selling things from the tomb, I can buy the new armor to make my party a bit more durable. I do need to figure out where the licenses are I need for each character. Okay, so battle lords down here, more item lords on the far left. Okay, I can make that work. Anyway, now that the tomb is mostly explored, it's time to hop back in and face the boss, the first esper, Belias. Stealing is always a good idea, and then it's time to attack away. Poison may not be the best weapon for damage, but they are still pretty good. And Virosia hurts, but not that bad. Honestly, this first esper fight is usually pretty easy, and that is also true here. I do have fewer high potions left than I'd like, and I can't actually buy any more, but that should be enough to get me through the next boss fight. Hopefully. The next boss is often quite a doozy. And that next boss fight is Vossler. Oh no, betrayal. Anyway, first up is to throw out an Eroga mode to destroy the ads, then a Dispel mode to dispel Vossler's buffs. He will recast Reflect, but that's fine, I'll just keep dispelling it, because anytime he spends recasting Reflect is time he isn't murdering my party. And his insistence on casting Reflect against a party with no offensive spells is ultimately what gets him killed. Good. That fight can be a bit of a mess while Vossler is at low HP, so it's very nice to win that fight on the first attempt with no major issues. And with that done, it's time to head south into the Giza Plains Wet. As usual, my first item on the agenda is to knock down all these rotted trees around the map. This opens up a hidden path to the southeast. The enemies here are very high level, and I don't actually want to fight them, but there are a few treasures here worth farming for sellable weapons, so let's just do that for a bit. Okay, that done, I can head further south to reach the Osmone Plains and into Jahara. Here I can pick up the Pheasant Natsuke. This greatly increases the effective healing items, which is amazing. And Larsa rejoins the party. That's another character who can heal. And it's shopping time. No new bows, but there's new armor for everyone. And I can stock up on healing items, particularly gold needles for reasons that will become obvious shortly, and high potions for more healing, which will be even more healing once I've unlocked the Pheasant Natsuke's license that I need. But first, I'm going to head back to Rabanastre to do some hunts. And by some, I mean one, and that is entirely to unlock the first monograph for some better drops from beast enemies. And now that the Tomb of Wraithwall has been completed, I can fly to Nalbina, rent a chocobo, head through the foreign highways, and into the northern area of the Westersand, here to pick up the Berserker Bracers. Constant auto-berserk on one character, and that character is Bosch, because he has the highest damage output. We love auto-berserk. Anyway, now it's over to the Galmore jungle to make use of the new monograph, and the many gold needles, because it is time to do some hefty farming on these panthers, which can be very easily chained in this first area, die pretty quickly, and drop valuable loot. They can try to inflict stone, but I have so many gold needles to cure it. And with grinding done, it's time to head into a rude village to get the next quest, and then sell all my shiny loot for loads of money, which also means new bows and new armor. I really should just never buy anything in Jahara, should I? Other than healing items, but the gear is just so short-lived. But with new marching orders, I need to return to Osmone Plains, borrow a chocobo, and head into the Hen Mines. And as is often the case, there aren't really any treasures here worth going out of my way for. At least I have 2 people set up to use Cura for healing, thanks to our guest. More healing, more better. And it's next boss time, Tiamat. This boss is kind of a tank, even against parties with good damage, but it's not too bad here. The only real danger in this fight is Disablega, which can incapacitate multiple party members, which highlights one of the big strengths of ranged weapons, spreading out. And because my party is so dispersed, Disablega can really only affect one target at a time, which is fine. That's easy enough to cope with. Anyway, time for a boss that is much more difficult, the Elder Worm. This boss is basically the same as Tiamat, except instead of one status, it uses most of them. Sporefall is a pretty obnoxious move, but Bow's ability to target from range means my party can spread out pretty effectively. This means only one target gets affected and can much more easily be cured of statuses, while the rest of the party keeps shooting. And it only gets to use Sporefall twice because my damage uptime is quite good. That boss sucks. Anyway, through the Galmore jungle, into the Paramina Rift, and it's time for Mount Bahamut. Remember to grab the crystal on the way in, and then meet with the Kiltius, and that is Larsa out of the party. Sad, your Cura will be missed. Oh well, shopping time. Same bows I already have, but new armor, and because of the bazaar, I now have fire arrows that I'll never use. Hooray! Alright, back into the Paramina Rift, and we head straight south to the Stillshrine of Miriam. Here, we must head through, beat up some statues, then run through this awful room that I'm not going to deal with, and we arrive at one of the best money grinding spots in the game. So, time for money grinding. There's even a treasure chest that can spawn that has a chance of dropping a better bow than I currently have. I actually do less grinding than normal. Maybe it's the monograph, but I still have a decent amount of money and I don't really need that much cash. I do get a Loxley bow though, so that's neat. More statue rotating, and it's time for a boss, in big air quotes, because Venuskar is somehow a less interesting and less threatening boss than Roomful of Dudes. At least the treasure after the boss has a Sage Ring. This halves MP cost, so that means twice as many Curas. Incredible. And with all the statues rotated, it's time to go up against the proper boss of the area, Marius. First up, take out the Azer, both because I don't want them to be alive, and because they can inflict sleep. Cura is doing a lot of healing work, but I can't help but notice that it's already not healing a ton of health. Oh well, it's still better than high potions, and first Blizaja, and okay, that's not too bad. Ash does get one shot right at the end of the fight, but that's fine. The fight is still over, and I can just revive her right after. Phoenix lores are great at restoring health. But that is the Stillshrine completed, which means it's back to Bahamut for the next boss fight against Bergan. Oh wait, the shops here sell remedies finally, and better bows, and armor. Yes please and thank you. The extra damage and durability is very nice. Oh right, Bergan, can't forget the boss. First up is to throw out some motes to destroy the ads, always beneficial, then focus on Bergan, who can deal pretty big damage. At least Phoenix Downs are very strong, and I don't need to refresh any buffs. My damage is also good enough that Bergan doesn't stay in the low health danger zone long enough to get a bunch of hits off. And with Bergan dead, the next destination on the list is Arcades, which means teleporting back over to the Mosforan highways, heading through them to the Salika Wood. Here I can collect the Mughal engineers to open the gate to the next area, and the warp crystal for later. This gets me to the Fawn Coast, and the camp here has new items to buy. Bows, armor, healing items I can stock up on. I still can't buy X potions, but high potions and Cura should be enough to get me through the next few areas to reach Arcades. Also, stone bow? Really? Stone doesn't bend. This would be an awful weapon. It would be a bad bow and stupidly heavy. Whatever, it's into the Cedar Uplands. This area is very big, but I don't care about most of it. I just need to chat with this child to get the hunt for the tomato family. And Vaughn can finally pick up the third remedy lore, meaning I can now cure all statuses with a single item. I will need to be judicious because remedies are expensive and I can only carry 99 at a time, But that's some good status curing, and should help a lot in the next boss fight. The tomato family loves to inflict status effects, and being able to cure all statuses on one character with a single item is glorious. My damage may not be exceptional, but being able to rapidly get my party healed up means my actual attack uptime more than makes up for it. This boss can be such a headache for some classes. Thankfully, this is not true here. And heading further in gets me to my next boss fight, Ahriman. Much like the tomato family, this fight can be a bit of a headache, with dangerous status effects and splitting enemies. Thankfully, remedies can cover the status effects, and while I don't have any AoE attacks, Bosch with Berserk is enough to punch through this boss very quickly. And that is the Cave Palace done! That gets me to Lower Arcades, where I can start a fight to access Arcades proper, and this place is a gold mine of new weapons, new armor, and I can finally buy X potions! I am optimistic that Cura will continue to be the main staple of my healing, but archers get basically no magic bonuses, so Cura will be dropping off whether I like it or not. Okay, it's time to gather chops to access the shuttle to reach Upper Arcades, and after a bit more story, it's time to take the shuttle into Draclor Laboratory. This area can be a bit tricky, only because it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the random guards, but other than that there is nothing interesting here. There are chests with moats, but my magic stat is continuing to fall behind the usability curve. And it's boss time, against Sid and his drones. Sid can't be hurt until the drones are broken, but it's still math best to leave Bosch Berserk, which does mean a decent portion of his attacks are blocked. However, Berserk doubles ATB and gives a 50% damage buff, so Sid also deals enough damage to be genuinely threatening, and high potions and Cura are just barely able to keep the party healed up. Fortunately, Sid is not particularly durable and goes down pretty easily. This leaves the party in Valfenheim with all new shops, and I have no money. And I could go back to the Stillshrine for grinding, but I'm just gonna keep pushing forward. The best money grinding spot in the game is right up ahead, and that will make the whole process a lot faster. Which means heading through the Galmor jungle, into the Feywild, and it's time to face the next boss, Reflesia. The field effect for this arena means I can't rely on Cura, and instead Vaughn must shoulder the healing burden entirely on his own. Good news is Reflesia is a very easy boss with very little HP, so the process is not particularly difficult, which I appreciate, and with Reflesia dead, it's time to grind. Because these Mirror Knights have nothing but very shiny item drops that sell for a good chunk of money. And because Reflesia is dead, it's very quick to move 2 zones away to reset all the spawns. So hold please while I exterminate a large portion of the Mirror Knight population. With that done, I can press on ahead to Giruvegan, an easy trek that also lets me pick up another golden amulet. Then warp back to Valfenheim to buy new bows and new armor for the whole party. And then swing by the item shop to fully stock up on healing items. Now, before I head into Giruvegan, I have a few more errands to complete. First is a quick airship ride back over to Bujerpa. On the plane here, I can buy teleport stones so I never have to worry about them again. And then warp to Rabanastre to do a few hunts. As is typical, I really only care about unlocking and completing the Encalados hunt. This gets me my 3rd golden amulet. With this, I can double LP on all allies, which means a few runs through trial mode should be very productive to unlock the remaining licenses I want. And yeah, that's a good amount of LP. I don't actually know if it's enough to get everything I want, but it's enough to get most of it. And the rest should come through normal progression. I especially appreciate the HP lures. More HP, please and thank you. But that's enough distractions for now, it's time for Giruvegan. First up is Daedalus. This fight is very easy until it's very not. This boss is basically a nothing fight until it gets to low HP, and then it will wreck your party. Good thing is I have X potions and Phoenix Downs, both with all 3 lures, because wow, that was very nearly a total party wipe, but I did win! And that means it's into Giruvegan proper. The enemies here love to inflict status effects. I can cure literally all of these with a single remedy, but I do need to be careful not to use all of them. Thanks to the money I have, replacing them would be quite easy, but if I run out mid-dungeon, that's a problem. And 99 remedies do not go as far as you might think they would. At least bows are still holding up their end of being okay at dealing damage. Again, nothing compared to the better damage dealers, but certainly not the worst by any means. Next boss time, Tyrant. The field effect for this boss prevents technics, which is fine. I'm not using any. Tyrant is actually pretty dangerous damage-wise. Darkra deals pretty decent hits, and it has Gravaga to deal pretty scary percentage damage. It is also tankier than I'd like it to be, in no small part because my damage is only fine. At least I have a decent amount of healing with Cura and X potions. Hopefully that didn't expend too many of my resources. And that means it's Great Crystal time, which has some new armor of dubious value. And by dubious, I actually mean I'll be able to buy it shortly, making it less exciting than it otherwise would be. Oh well, I guess any upgrade to defense and HP is good, even if it's not exciting. Next boss time, Shemhazai. And Shemhazai is another boss that starts off not that scary, but can become scary. Flare deals big damage, though it is single target, and Phoenix Lores means my revive capabilities are very good. And yeah, actually this fight is not difficult. I just have too much healing and too much damage for this fight to be that threatening. And with that, Giruvegan is completed, so it's back to Valfenheim to get our final guest to join the party. He can't heal, but he does have decent enough damage to contribute, and he's a 4th body to be targeted by attacks, which is always nice. Oh, and the shop sells better bows and better armor. Hooray! And now it's time for another side quest. It starts with the Bomb King in the Salika Wood. I am more than strong enough to kill it before it can use Renew to be obnoxious. Then into the Nabrius Deadlands to reach the Necro Hall of Nabudis. This area has very strong enemies that are very dangerous, so I need to proceed with great caution to reach my ultimate destination, the Hermes Sandals, a staple of any run because it gives auto haste. And by combining the Hermes Sandals, Bacchus Cider, and Domain Calvados, I can give Bosch Berserk, Haste, and Bravery, maximizing his damage, which is great. And with the final side quest done, and some off-screen money grinding to actually afford the best armor I can buy, it's time for the final big zone of the game, the Pharos. A very long boss rush of a dungeon that will test my item stockpile limits. Oh, I should also buy Dispel Motes first. These are great. In the Raideriana Cataract, I can grab another Netsuke, so Ash and Vaughn can both benefit from increased item healing, and then it's Hydro time. This boss loves to inflict a lot of status effects, which would be dangerous if I didn't have 99 remedies. Without statuses as a real threat, I can just bash away at it until it is dead. Next is Pandemonium, big old turtle, who is very easy, very simple. Bosch deals great damage with his triple buff setup, and Ash and Vaughn can easily keep the party healed up, despite Kira becoming increasingly weak. The fight does take longer than it should, because the turtle can make itself invulnerable for a while, but that doesn't make it difficult. Oh, and before I progress, I'm gonna warp back to Valfenheim to restock. From here on out, it will be way more tedious to run back and grab more healing if needed, so better to do it now. And we find our next upgrades in the next section, because beating Shemhazai and learning the license with Bosch unlocks a few heavy armor licenses. Heavy armor has better defenses and boosts strength, so while his HP may end up a bit lower than Ash and Vaughn, that extra damage is more than worth it thanks to the dragon armor I can pick up in this dungeon. Thank you, game, for having a late-game esper unlock a late-game benefit. It's so rare when that actually happens. Okay, and then comes the time to kill these stupid torch enemies. Normally you just focus on the green ones to unlock the way forward. However, there is a new bow available here I cannot otherwise obtain. This bow is an upgrade, but it requires killing red torch enemies, which respawn real weird for some reason. And this whole process takes like a comical amount of time. Seriously, it was like 25 minutes. And I joked, while doing this, wow, all this for a 3-point increase, which was supposed to be a joke about how little the harder to get weapons actually increase damage in the endgame, except it wasn't a joke, apparently, because it actually is just a 3-point increase, meaning it wasn't worth it. Anyway, next boss, Slight, a boss that is actually terrifying in most runs. It starts off so easy. Slight takes big hits, deals mediocre damage, and then as its HP starts to drop, it starts to combo like crazy. I do win the fight, but that's really only because of Bosch's good damage and Phoenix down spam. Seriously, I do not know why the boss is tuned this way, but whatever, it's a win. In the next area, I give up Knowledge because it removes the mini-map, but not the extra map they added in the remaster, which has always been very funny to me. And here's the Dragon Mail, so Bosch is fully kitted out in heavy armor. Fantastic. Anyway, moving on to the next boss of this dungeon, Fenrir, which is, as always, underwhelming. It can buff itself throughout the fight, which could be scary, but who cares? I have a comical number of Dispel Motes to keep it thoroughly unbuffed and vulnerable. And that was a nice refreshing battle after the last fight. And one last big section to run through, teleporting about, and we have another boss. This time against the Esper Ashmal. Start by throwing out a float mote to negate any of his earth-based attacks. This fight is a bit rough because he inflicts disease, which makes healing take even longer than normal. And while Float ignores earth damage, Ashmal is actually just pretty dangerous. And Float doesn't last forever. Oof, that was a poorly timed quickja. Okay, backup squad, in to use Phoenix Downs and switch Bosch back to the Berserker Bracers. Otherwise he's gonna spend the whole fight dying while trying to set up buffs. Okay, there we go, that was trickier than I'd hoped, but it worked out. In this final area, I can pick up a Mega Elixir to use in the final Vayne fight, and then it's time to take down Gabranth, which is very easy because he is very weak in this fight, and Bosch gets to go back to his uber buffed form, and it's Dr. Sid time. The first half of this fight is very easy, and out comes Famfrit. Vaughn's main role in this fight is to throw out Dispel motes. Sid loves to recast defensive spells on Famfrit, so the more I dispel, the less Sid does, and the more vulnerable Famfrit remains. That's really the only interesting part of this fight though. Famfrit, despite being a higher tier esper, is way easier than Ashmal, and with Famfrit down, Sid also drops. And that means Redis is gone too. The shops don't have anything new for me, but at least I can have Bosch take the Famfrit license to unlock 2 HP lures. This helps him make up for the lower health thanks to heavy armor. And then to the item shop to restock. There is more I could do to prepare, but I don't think I need to. It's time for the Bahamut. Final boss rush time. And first on the list is the actually difficult Gabranth fight. The fight starts the same as the last one, but Gabranth doesn't give up at low health. Instead, he fully heals himself and starts to combo more and more as his HP gets low. This means he can sometimes one-combo a party member, which is not ideal. I still need to keep Gabranth dispelled, and once his HP gets low and combos start flying, Vaughn can use the Gill Toss technique I picked up in Draclor to finish off the fight. Ah, the easy way to win. Thank you, Gill Toss. You are invaluable. Next up, we team up with Larsa to face regular Vayne. This portion of the fight is very easy, and we spend more time watching cutscene attacks than actually fighting. Then it's on to Swole Vayne alongside Gabranth. First, I need to switch up my gamuts to have both Vaughn and Ash use X potions and at higher HP thresholds. The time for Cura is over. Vayne has 4 swords that fly around the arena and need to be taken out first. But once that's done, the fight is mostly just attacking, failing to dispel his buffs because he's immune to magic, and the fight is pretty quick. Now it's time for the actual fight, the Undying. As with the prior forms, I need to prioritize X potion healing to keep the party alive, and dispel motes to keep the Undying from buffing his damage and defenses. Vayne has 3 palings he will use. 1 blocks magical damage, which means I can't dispel any buffs he has. 1 blocks physical damage, meaning I have to wait, and the final paling blocks everything. But once he uses Terra Flare, that means the final paling is down. Now it's all about expending all my resources, so Gill Toss and attack away, and there we go. The Undying is down, and the game has been beaten. And that was Final Fantasy XII, beaten with only archers. That was a pretty fun run. I wasn't really expecting it to be that difficult. Bows are kind of subpar weapons, but they aren't that subpar. And Cura for most of the game, with all item lures, covers any healing the party could really need. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out next week. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos. So if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone, and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.